Hi everyone, I'm Glenn Flavor from Boardgames and Bourbon, and right now I'm going to talk to you about what it's like to play the Manhattan Project 2 Minutes to Midnight. Now, this is a follow-up, a direct successor to the Manhattan Project 1. There's a few other ones along the way. Manhattan Project 1 had an expansion, then there was Energy Empires, there was a card game, and this is more directly related. It's related because whereas in the first one you're trying to come up with the bomb, here you're all the worlds are powered and you're fighting against each other to leading up to the Cold War to be in the best position to win it or perhaps deter it. Okay, so this game is very, very meaty, very satisfying. There's good decisions in it. There's going to be a lot of working on plans, a lot of thought. There's going to be a lot of mistimed successes in the game, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. But ultimately, it's a game that keeps me wanting to come back, and I think that's really the sign of a good game. Okay, so I have my notes here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the premise, explain the gameplay, and then I'm going to give you my ratings, okay? So the premise of the game. In this game, you are a nuclear-powered country, and you're trying to be the most imposing force in the world. Being the most imposing force is represented by gaining points, and you're going to gain these points most robustly at certain moments in the game. And essentially every time you take a turn in the game, this little counter goes up and eventually is going to reach a point where it says score this item in the game. It might be how many subs you have or airplanes or missile silos. I'll talk more about that in a second. So in order to reach these goals, you have to build up to achieving these goals. So for instance, if you're trying to get airplanes out, well, you can't get airplanes out unless you have a facility to build them. You can't build them unless you have the workers for it, and you can't do anything without the money to have either. You need also workers to turn into military people so you can take military actions, and there's just a lot involved in the game. You're going to be taking your workers, you're going to send them out, you're going to turn them into basically through a training school, either to recruit new workers, which you'll convert into specialists in the future. And those specialists are politicians. They're going to get you more money in the game. Engineers who are essentially the workers who go into the plants and crank these things out. You turn them into spies. You are going to send spies to other locations on the board to have them do your bidding and mess up the other people. You're going to create nuclear weapons in the game. You're going to have silos in the game, which is basically to house your missiles, almost like so you can attack other people. You're also going to have defense shields. You're going to be invading airspace, water space through subs. You're going to be taking movements to get your missiles into third world countries, kind of positioning yourself. And you're also going to want to impose political clout in those third world countries to exert control and gain points. And in a way, boy, there's a lot of moving parts. There's even the political side of it. To me, I know this isn't a traditional war game, but to me this feels as much a war game as anything else. I've played Quartermaster General, which I consider a war game. Some people don't. I'd say in a way this kind of tickles on a Twilight Struggle in a way. So how about that? Okay. Now, like I said before, when you're doing all these things, you're going to gain points. And it has to do with how you place your workers and when you do it. So explanation of how the game plays. Okay, so in the game, you're going to have your personal area, and then you're going to have a communal area, okay? And then there's also going to be a scoring track that serves as a technology tree. So in your personal area, that's going to represent where your workers are going to go and what you're building in your personal area. So you can build silos or factories or, reactors, whatever it might be. When you put that in your personal area, you have to do that after you have workers and after you have building actions and after you have money to build certain things. Now, in those areas where you're building things, you can have things to attack other people, things to defend you, which is also a scoring condition. But you can also, in your personal area, have spies from other people. So when people send spies to your board, they are both draining you of the resources of whatever location they land on, but they're also preventing you from going there. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Spy is kind of something that doesn't seem like it immediately pays dividends, but it will over the course of the game. Okay, now that's your personal board. Now there is a group board, and on the group board, this is where you are going to send your workers out to either put them into schooling, to convert them into politicians or spies or military men, to recruit more workers, or to take military actions. So you can put somebody down as a military action, and then that lets you, attack, blow something up, move something, all those kind of things. Okay. Lastly, there's a technology tree, which is also the scoreboard. So every time, the scoreboard not only tracks what all the independent players are getting, but it also is going to track how many turns have been taken. Every time someone sends out their workers to do something, you get to do two things in that part. You get to either build something or take one or two placements of men out there. And once you put your people out there and all your people are out, you must retrieve them. And when you retrieve them, this is when you reap the benefits of everything you've done, and it pushes the marker up. You retrieve, this counter goes up. Eventually, people will do it enough that it triggers a scoring event. And that's going to be pretty critical, and that's tracked on the scoring track and event track, which is also the technology tree. So let's say on your personal board, you build a research center, and you're going to decide, you retrieve your workers, that you're going to activate that research center. Now you're going to apply that to airplanes or submarines or whatever it might be. Let's say airplanes. So now you bump your airplanes up. If you bump your airplanes up high enough, now your airplanes have enough technology that they can leave your airspace, your personal board, and it can be sent to another player's board, which will be really great when that scoring moment comes around. Even if you miss it, you'll still get something. And it's pretty cool to have airplanes in someone else's thing. You can do this too with the submarines, which is really cool. You can move your missiles into third world countries and just populate, which is pretty cool. That kind of movement around feels really, really satisfying. Okay. Okay. Now, of course, the double-edged sword of that is if your opponent has a spy, well, then they can sit right on your research factory or whatever it might be and tie it up or gain the advantage for themselves, build something pretty fancy. Get a bunch of nuclear goo or something like that. Okay, so let's talk about breakdown of how the game plays. So the game, if we look at it, what does it say here? It says it's 13 up, 2 to 5 players. Definitely is competitive. Not going to do the solo. And it says it takes 2 hours. Definitely takes over 2 hours, no doubt. The best player count for this game is 5 people. That's because at 5 people, you are constricting what can be done. The decisions are going to matter more. My favorite part of the game is when you're deploying the subs and stuff like that. And in order to do that, you really have to build your engine. So with the more people or more constraints, that makes it more interesting. Also, with 5 people, and when they deploy subs, the cool thing about the subs is when you do it, you're basically taking a sub card and you're taking a decoy sub card, you're turning them upside down and you're sticking it in another player's area. And if a bunch of people are doing that, they're going to have a whole stack of other people's subs, decoy subs, and then that person who is being invaded by all these subs, they have to take an action to clean up their subs, and they basically have to pull random cards out of it, hoping they get the good ones. It's almost like they're attacking the decoys, and so that's really cool when they miss. Sometimes it's bad when they pick yours, but still, it's a pretty exciting part of the game. Game components, 8 out of 10. They're great, they're sturdy, they're richly colored. And the reason I'm saying the components get an 8 out of 10 is I am not a fan of minis. I don't care about their size or their assembly or that they're gray or if they're painted. I think traditional game components survive the test of time for a reason, and these are really rock solid, so I give it 8 out of 10. The game art, I also give it an 8 out of 10. The art in this game is definitely the best in the series. It's well designed. The graphic design is really good. You can look at the symbols and understand what they're trying to convey. And when I think about what is my criterion for good game design, is it that the board and the parts don't distract you from the game, because sometimes you can get a game and the symbols make no sense, or there's too many symbols, or the art's really bad and kind of pulls you out of the world, or the art doesn't even make sense. In this game, it's all unified. That's pretty good. Now, the instructions, I give the instructions 7 out of 10. They're fairly good, especially considering how dense this game could be, but the instructions have a way of making it seem very logical. You are going to have to play it ahead of time and read it ahead of time to get a feel for it. And I would really suggest doing game run through so that you're not wasting everyone's time. Not that it's a waste, but you don't want to have one dragged out game as you're going over rules and people are debating what it means. Play it yourself, make up your mind about what it means, and figure out the implications. The game length, 7 out of 10. It's a very satisfying game, way longer than 2 hours. The game does provide multiple lengths, and essentially it says there's a short, there's a medium, and there's a long. Okay, the short game, you shouldn't think of the short game as a short game. You should think of the short game as the advanced game, because in the short game, the scoring triggers come faster, so you are really going to have to know what you're doing to hit those moments and be on top of your game, or you're going to have to really know how to pick and choose which goals you want to satisfy. So you're going to need experience to pull that off. For me, the longer games are more fun, because even if you're not good at it, you're going to have time to develop. You're going to have time to see your airplanes go in the sky. You're going to have time to see your submarines invade other waters. You're going to see your spies go out, your politicians try to take over third world countries. So for me, that story element is really what I love. So the long game is my preferred way. And that was, probably good over 3 hours. Okay. Quality of decision making, 8.5 out of 10. What you do in this game really matters, and not only because you have to know what you're doing, and I will say you will do better in the game if you played it before. That's probably one of the negatives of the game, but it's not so out of the grasp of new players that they won't be able to assemble some kind of plan. And what you decide to do really takes a lot of thought. You just can't say, I want a submarine. You have to figure out, how do I get my nuclear material? How do I get my factory going? How do I get the worker? How do I get the military action? How do I deploy? All these different things. And so you have to figure out when the right time is to go. You have to watch the tracker, because if somebody pulls their people from the board and then they go up and they trigger the scoring event, you're out of luck. So you have to time, and there's a lot of balancing going on. Also, one of the great things about it is someone might totally mess up your plan. So you always have to be on your toes and know how to react, how to recalibrate your plan. If you have nothing to do on the board, you better figure out how to mess the other guy up, okay? So for me, that was great. Now, my overall satisfaction of the game, 9 out of 10. I would gladly and eagerly play this game again. Now, in fact, I've been trying to get more people to play it with me, but as I'm recording this, Super Bowl weekend, and people have a bunch of plans. I'm going to, cry me a river. So I cannot give my endorsement of this game highly enough. I'm really, really loving it. Really grateful for the opportunity to, try it out ahead of time and share the good word about it. Okay, so again, that is the Manhattan Project 2, Minutes to Midnight, okay? So if you're looking for a heavy duty with a lot of choices, this is a great option for you, okay? Thank you so much, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.